If you think revenge must roar, listen closely, this is how silence wins. I opened the front door and she was standing on my stoop, the woman who had taken my husband from me. Her hair was perfectly styled, her lips painted in that very red he once told me suited me best. Beside her stood the man who had been my partner for years, reduced now to a pale, trembling shadow. She didn't waste a second. Her smug smile stretched wide, as if she'd practiced this moment in front of a mirror. "We're here for our rightful share of your father's estate," she said, honeyed and vicious. "Move out immediately." My fingers gripped the doorframe, not out of fear but to steady myself. If she looked close, she could have read the calm in my face. I already knew how this scene would play out. I let the silence hang between us. Then I stepped aside and, almost casually, let my lawyer fall into view. He appeared like a blade, tall, precise, and unyielding. The woman's smirk faltered for the first time. There was a season when I would have bled for him. He had been more than a husband, my refuge, my laughter, the map to my future. When we met, I believed fate had slipped a promise into my lap. He spoke of forever in hushed, intoxicating whispers, children, a home, a life aged together. I kept those promises close, defending him against any doubt. When my father died, I clung to him as my anchor through grief. I didn't notice the slow unthreading. He began to pull away, phone calls he wouldn't let me overhear, trips that didn't match the invoices, perfume that wasn't mine. I asked nothing. I watched instead. The last cut came when I followed him and found them, hand in hand, laughing in the half-light of a restaurant where he'd once taken me for my birthday. That was the moment my breaking heart hardened. Tears would have fed his ego. Anger would have pleased her. So I chose silence, and I sharpened it into a plan. While he packed his bags and muttered hollow apologies, I packed away my grief and hid it where they would never find. The next morning I called my lawyer. We audited every asset, every deed, every gap he'd left open in his arrogance, and we set a trap. Step 1: secure my father's estate. It had never been in his name, and I fortified the protections, no contest, no loophole, no route for him to stake a claim. Step 2: the divorce. I let him believe he'd escaped with the spoils. I signed without fanfare, surrendered the small things so he'd never suspect the steady calculus beneath. He read my silence as weakness. Step 3: patience. I waited. I watched him marry her. I waited for her greed, for the moment she would walk to my door convinced she had everything. Then I pulled the final string. Now she stood on my threshold, wearing her insolence like a crown. Behind me, my lawyer moved forward, voice smooth and deliberate. "Mrs. Khan," he said directly, not to me but to her. "You appear to be misinformed. This estate is legally protected and bound exclusively to my client. Neither you nor your husband hold any legal right to it." He opened a folder with the calm precision of someone delivering a verdict, then laid out what they had missed: evidence of fraudulent claims made by her husband during divorce proceedings, documents showing attempts to mislead, and a case for damages. Her face went white. Her husband blinked, his bravado crumbled like old plaster. I stood quiet, feeling the unraveling like a slow, sweet justice. "Leave," my lawyer finished, his tone final. "Or we file today." She opened her mouth and found nothing to say. The smirk died. For the first time I watched fear creep into her posture. They left without another word. I closed the door softly behind them. The house was still, but the silence this time was light, not heavy, it felt like freedom. I walked through my father's study, fingers trailing over the spines he once loved. He taught me patience, he taught me a strength that didn't have to roar. In that moment I understood what real revenge is, not noise but precision, not spectacle but the careful closing of a net. I hadn't lost a husband, I had removed a parasite, and in the space he left I found something greater. The satisfaction of knowing she had come for everything and left with nothing. Not even her smug smile. This is my story, precise, deliberate, and finally, mine again. I reclaimed everything.